This week we're learning Parsha Teitzei. This Parsha contains 74 commandments, which basically means it's more mitzvot than any other Torah portion. The discussion starts regarding the female captive of war and lays down the conditions under which a soldier who took a liking to her may marry this captive woman. Then Torah switches to the right of the firstborn son to a double portion of his father's inheritance. Then the section concludes with this section, part of the Torah concludes with the procedure of dealing with the incredibly rebellious child. The issues of speedy burial of the deceased is raised, and returning of lost object to its owner is highlighted, the requirement to do that, aiding a neighbor when his animal has fallen because of a burden, the prohibition against cross-dressing, and the obligation to send away a mother bird before one takes the chicks or the eggs from the nest. Then Torah switches here to building a safety fence around the flat roof so that nobody falls from the roof. The prohibitions against sowing mixtures of seeds to different mixtures of different plants, seeds in the same field. Prohibition of plowing with a mixed pair of animals like an ox and a donkey. Wearing a garment which contains a mixture of wool and linen, shatnez, is prohibited. Wearing tzitzit, the penalty for a husband, then the issue of wearing tzitzit. Then the penalty for a husband who defames his wife. The punishment for adultery is explained, and the penalty for rape is explained. And the certain prohibited marriages are highlighted. Then the Torah switches to commandments discussed in this section, maintaining how to maintain pure and hygienic army encampments, the impurity resulting from the seminal emissions, how to deal with them, prohibition against prostitution, prohibition against lending with interest, and the obligation to honor vows. Meaning, basically, if you promise something, you do it. You must do it. Then the Parsha raises the issues of the rights of the field workers to eat the produce which they harvesting in the field, but they cannot take it home. Then Torah briefly discusses the marriage and the bill of divorce. A divorced couple cannot remarry if the woman has been married to another man and now she is either divorced from him or widowed in the interim. A newlywed man is exempt from military service for a full year. It is forbidden to accept utensils used to prepare food as a loan security or forcibly to take debtor's possessions as collateral. And a poor man's security must be temporarily returned to him on daily basis, even if you took some security from the poor man. Kidnapping is mentioned as a capital offense. We are commanded to always remember that Miriam was afflicted by tzara for speaking badly about Moses and his wife, Zipporah. Then Torah tells us, do not despise the Edomite because he is your brother. And do not despise the Egyptian because you were strangers in his land. It tells us that we are forbidden to withhold or delay workers' wages. Explains that relatives' testimony is not admissible in the court of law. And then it lists various mandatory gifts for the poor as discussed. The procedure for corporal punishment is outlined. The mitzvah of levirate marriage, yibum, is introduced, which means if a married childless man dies, his brother is obligated to marry the widow. If the brother refuses to marry the widow, he and she go through a chalitza ceremony, which frees her to marry whoever she wishes. So it's mutual, you know. If the brother doesn't want to marry her, or she doesn't want to get married to the brother, that's why they go through chalitza. Towards the end of the Torah portion, we are instructed to maintain accurate weights and measures so that we don't, God forbid, cheat on our customers. And Torah finishes, the Torah portion finishes with reading with the mitzvah to remember Amalek's evil deed, which when they ambushed the Israelites on their way from Egypt. And that's the content of this Torah portion. As you can see, this parsha covers a great number of details, a number of everyday life-related laws and rules of behavior, covering a huge number of different topics as well. It is hard to absorb even this information in one go. Moses passes on to the Israelites, and specifically he means us, the pre-Messianic generation actually, that we must understand all of this. As you know, Torah depth is immeasurable, and the pshat simple level, we read these pasukim or sentences as if they talk about physical war and the physical captive beautiful woman, for instance. But on a deeper rames or drush levels, we learn about something totally different. This is our private inner war. The battle between our spiritual soul, Kedusha, and our physical part, Yetzer Hara. The ongoing war between our morality, decency, integrity, justice on one side, versus our temptations, physical desires, sexual desires, gluttony, greed, egoistic behavior, etc., on the opposite side. I spoke about all of this in my last year Teitzei 5780 video blog. You can find it in my Chaim's Torah YouTube channel, and you will find quite a number of different Torah parshayot there. I will display here right now for you the way it's spelled, and when you search for it in YouTube, you must spell it exactly that way, and then it will go give you a misspelled version, and then on top it will ask, did you mean that? And you need to click on that, and then on top of it you will see exactly what you're supposed to see, my channel. This year, let's talk about something as important as the ongoing battle within our soul with our physicality. Two statements made by Moses which have attracted my attention this week due to a number of events which actually took place in Australia over the last few days. Statement 1, it says, do not despise an Edomite because he is your brother. Do not despise the Egyptian because you were a stranger in his land. Devarim 23:8. And the second statement, remember what the Lord your God did to Miriam on the way when you went out of Egypt. Again, Devarim 24, Pasuk 9. Rabbi Sachs, may God elevate his soul and bless it, he left us incredible volume of books and articles full of his wisdom. And he writes regarding these two statements the following. Examining and understanding them will teach us an important lesson about society in general and leadership in particular. First, a broader point. Jews have been subjected to racism more and longer than any other nation on earth. Therefore, we should be doubly careful never to be guilty of it ourselves. We believe that God created each of us, regardless of color, class, culture, or creed. He created us in His image. If we look down on other people because of their race, we are demeaning God's image and failing to respect kavod haberiyot, human dignity. If we think less of a person because of the color of the person's skin or the way his nose looks, we are repeating the sin of Aaron and Miriam when in Numbers chapter 12:1, Torah says, Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses because of Cushite woman he had married, for he had married a Cushite woman. What they mean is she was of dark skin. The plain sense is that they looked down on Moses' wife because she had dark skin, making this one of the first recorded instances of color prejudice. Racism. For this sin, Miriam was struck with leprosy by God, none less than God. The Tanakh contains negative evaluations of some other nations, and that's true, but always and only because of the moral failures of those nations, never because of ethnicity or skin color or specific characteristics. There are many everyday life laws raised in the Parsha covering a number of different daily interactions between people in this Parsha. We all know that one of the fundamentals of Judaism is the requirements for people to respect and follow the law of the land they reside in as well. What has transpired during this week in Australia is a typical example how a silly mistake of some young Jews who decided to have an engagement party, 69 people, while all of Melbourne was in lockdown due to COVID-19. The breach was discovered. More than that, the party resulted in 6 people getting infected with COVID-19. And all of this will result in serious penalties imposed on organizers and participants. Which is absolutely correct reaction of the state of Victoria authorities. What is hard to understand is what these people think and what their leaders were thinking when they were going along with all this very egoistic idea. Pure Yetzer Hara. Not only they broke the law, not only they infected people, but they gave a reason to the anti-Semites to start a hatred campaign in the social media against the Jews in Australia. Just look at this heading in local newspapers. Australian couple suffered death threats and anti-Semitic abuse after breaking lockdown for engagement party. We all in Australia are blessed to be part of very egalitarian society, which mostly has managed to strike a wonderful balance for all ethnicities in Australia, enabling people to keep their traditions and at the same time being real Australians, loving our country and our way of life. I'm very grateful to the Premier of Victoria, Daniel Andrews, for his very clear statement about the anti-Semitic messages in the social media and the fact that racism and anti-Semitism will not be accepted in Australia. That the abnormal, egoistic behavior of a small group of people should not become a reflection on the whole community He stated that loud and clear. However, in line with the Torah laws spelled out in this week's Torah portion and halacha in general, the Australian Jewish leadership should look very seriously at the organizers and participants of this monumental fiasco of the engagement party, and consider developing an education program for them, maybe, how to respect the laws of the land as part of their Torah education. Shabbat Shalom.
למען החי ורעי, למען החי ורעי, אדם בנה, אדם בנה, שלום לך, למען החי למען החי ורעי, אדברנה, אדברנה, שלום בך.